fellow movie crusaders? Welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and today we review one of the most anticipated films of 2019, the final chapter to the Star Wars episodic saga, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, for me, if you guys haven't been paying attention to my channel, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. You see Yoda behind me, you see Jabba and Leia above me. I've been a big fan of Star Wars all my life. My dad got me into it. I've went and seen all the films in theaters, the original trilogy when they released them in the special editions in the 90s. And I'm one of the people that are actually pro new trilogy. I know it's kind of a, half and half for most people. Some people like Force Awakens, some people hate it. A lot of people hate Last Jedi, a lot of people like Last Jedi. I liked both. But yeah, so going into Rise of Skywalker, I knew that this film was going to be very conflictive for a lot of people. People are either going to love it or they're going to hate it, because for some reason, Star Wars films have become very toxic in terms of the fans. If you like it, you're stupid for liking it. If you hate it, then you're an asshole for hating it. It's a no-win situation now with Star Wars fans when it comes to the movies, except that we all can agree that we like The Mandalorian. Or the TV series in general. We all loved Clone Wars, we all loved Rebels. Now, because of the severity of this film in terms of spoilers, as you guys know, I normally like to post pictures of the film as I'm talking about it, but because of how spoiler heavy this film could be with photos, I'm not going to have any photos popping up while I'm talking about this film, so you're just going to have to look at my pretty face while I talk about this movie. This is a non-spoiler review, just like all my other reviews I normally do. We will be doing a spoiler review here in the next few days, so if you guys really want to know how we really feel about this film, be on the lookout for that one. It will definitely be a very long video, because there is a lot to digest and a lot to unpack when it comes to this movie. Which is also why this review is going to be very hard to do, because there's a lot of things that I want to talk about and explain and go into detail with that I just can't, because it would go into spoiler territory. So if some things I'm saying come off very vague, I apologize. Check out that spoiler review. We will be going over all of that. So let's go ahead and jump in to the review, and we'll see if I am able to keep myself from spoiling anything. If I do, I'll just edit it out. So, Rise of Skywalker, I mean, the plot is simple. We all know the plot. Anyone who's a Star Wars fan knows the plot. The Resistance, on their last legs fighting against the First Order, are doing everything they can to win the war, to bring balance to the galaxy. And that's basically the general plot, where an evil... a comeback of an evil character, aka Emperor Palpatine, y'all have seen the trailers, y'all know, comes back, and it's up to the Resistance to try to stop him, so the First Order doesn't succeed. That's the plot. Not going any further than that. That was in the trailers. Let's move on. What works with Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker? There's a lot that works with this film. There's a lot of things that I loved about this movie. There's also a lot of things I did not like about this movie, but we will save that for the what doesn't work part of the section. What works, everyone's performances are as good, if not better, than what we've seen before. Daisy Ridley does a fantastic job as Rey. She gets a ton to do in this movie. Adam Driver does a real solid job as Kylo Ren. John Boyega does a great job as Finn. Oscar Isaac as Poe. He gets so much more to do in this film than he did in the first two, so that was a very welcome thing. They all did a good job. Anthony Daniels gets a heck of a lot more to do with C-3PO. The additions of Naomi Ackel, who plays Janna, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to describe her character at all, but I liked her introduction into the film. I thought she was a pretty good character overall. Kerry Russell plays a new character, Zori Bliss. Really liked that character. I wish we could have gotten more of her in the film, but I loved her character overall. Lupita Nyong'o as Maz Kanata. She's great, but she's not in it a whole lot. Ian McDermott as Emperor Palpatine. It's Palpatine. If you love Palpatine, you're going to love his performance. Let's see, am I leaving anyone else out? Donald Gleason is General Hux. He's General Hux. If you like the General Hux character, you're going to like him. If you don't like him, you're not going to like him. Mark Hamill does a solid job as Luke Skywalker. Carrie Fisher, a lot of it is archive footage. They do the best they can. Leia had a very, very important story in this. And yes, she did pass away 3 years ago. So JJ's doing the best he can with what he's got. There are some scenes where we can tell that that's really Carrie Fisher. And there are scenes where you can tell that it's a computer-generated Carrie Fisher. You just kind of have to let it go. It's not something that they had planned. Obviously, she passed away. It wasn't like that was part of the plan. She was supposed to be a very integral part to the story. She is still a very integral part to the story. It's just there are going to be times where you're going to tell that that's not really Carrie Fisher, and the other scene that is Carrie Fisher. So I think they did a very good job at that overall. The fight sequences are very, very fun. There's a lot of lightsaber action in this. Probably more than in any other Star Wars film in terms of lightsaber action. The final battle sequence I thought was really, really cool looking. Fantastic visuals. Very flashy in terms, because JJ likes flashy lens flares and stuff like that. But still a very, very cool battle sequence. Very cool. And there's other great battle sequences throughout. The new robot, I think it's Devo. Take him or leave him. He's fine. I don't think he really brings a whole lot to the story. There was one new character. I blanking on his name. He's a little guy. Anyone who saw the trailers, he's the little guy who's working on the back of C-3PO's head when C-3PO says that emotional speech. I think it's like Boba Eka or something like that. Love that little guy. I thought he was a highlight of the film personally. Does the film tie up nicely to the end? When it ends, is it a definitive end to the franchise? Yes, it is. No, there's no after credits. No, there is no mid credits. When it ends, it is over. But yeah, I enjoyed a lot of this movie. It is still a Star Wars movie, so I still really, really like it. With Star Wars films, we do tend to let certain things go that we wouldn't let other movies go. So, like, I could be saying that, oh, Star Wars did this, this, and this that's wrong, and it gets like an 8.5 out of 10. Whereas this movie does those same exact things, but it gets like a 6 or a 5. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're gonna let some of this stuff slide because it's Star Wars. No Star Wars film is perfect, not even Empire Strikes Back. Newsflash. But, and if you guys have been watching the Movie Crusaders ride through the Star Wars galaxy, you'll know none of these movies are safe. We butcher these movies, but we still love them profusely. Like I said, there's a lot of fun elements to this movie. It's still got the good humor. Like I said, you get a lot more of Rey, Finn, and Poe working together. Mostly Finn and Poe. So if you guys like that dynamic between the two of them, you're gonna love this because they get a lot of screen time together in this film. Like I said, I know what I'm saying is very vague, but I just can't say a lot of things because of spoilers. Now, what does not work with Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker? There's a lot of problems with the movie. Like I said, really loved it still, really enjoyed it, but there are a lot of problems. First off, the script is a mess. Basically, if you hated Last Jedi, you will really enjoy this film. If you loved Last Jedi, you're probably going to be pissed off with this movie. Because basically, the first 45 minutes or so, maybe hour of this movie is very chaotic and hectic. It's boom, 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 boom. Because it feels like J.J. Abrams is trying to rewrite Last Jedi, in a sense. I'm not saying that he's completely ignoring it and completely throwing it out of the water, but the first 45 minutes to an hour is basically feels like JJ writing his version of what Episode 8 would have been had he had directed that film, and then the last, like, hour and a half is actually Episode 9. Now, you could say, why did he do that? Well, frankly, there's just way too much stuff in this movie that they're stuffing in to the point where some feels unnecessary and some feels counterproductive based off of Last Jedi. Almost like he should have another movie to have done this. AKA Episode 8. But he decided he didn't want to do that, and they gave it to Rian Johnson, and then he did his own thing. And then they brought JJ back to kind of fix everything. But the problem is that he has to then go back and fix everything that Rian Johnson did. Like I said, he doesn't completely null and void anything from Last Jedi. But if I'm being honest here, if you never saw Last Jedi and you just watched everything to Force Awakens and then you went into this one without seeing Last Jedi, you probably would be okay. You would probably be able to watch this movie without too many questions. You probably would be able to follow everything that's happening and not go, I don't understand what's going on, because that's how much they kind of retconned or kind of covered everything that Last Jedi did. Looking back at it, there's maybe 3 things in Last Jedi that I'm like, no, they didn't. You would need to have seen that to know what's going on here. But for the most part, you could probably completely skip over Last Jedi and go right into this film and not miss a beat for the most part. Because of that, like I said, the first 45 minutes to an hour is very chaotic. It's jumping all over the place, and the script's very messy because of it. And then because they did a whole 45 minutes of an hour out of that, the whole last act is very, very focused in trying to get to the endpoints, that some things kind of fall by the wayside. There are new characters, like I said, Jana, played by Naomi Ackel, and Kerry Russell, Zori Bliss, played by Kerry Russell, that are brand new characters that we would love to know more about, love to learn more about. We don't get to, because there's just not enough time. It's 2.5 hours. It probably could have been 3 or 3.5 hours to let this movie breathe. It doesn't get any time to breathe. It also kind of feels like a video game, in a sense. It feels like cutscene, action sequence, end boss battle, cutscene, action sequence, end boss battle, cutscene, action sequence, end boss battle. Rinse and repeat that about 10 times, and that's kind of what this movie feels like. Not necessarily a bad thing, but that's kind of what it feels like. You can pretty much break up this film into levels like you would a video game. There are a big problem for me, like I said, I liked it, but there were some things I had problem. There's a ton of fan service in this movie. There were certain things that I loved that they did, and there are certain things where I'm going, okay, you're literally just doing this because you've heard people complain about this one aspect for decades, so let's tack this thing on at the end, which at that point is just like, don't do that, because it feels out of place, and it doesn't feel earned. It feels like here's an apology letter, we're sorry, here's what you wanted, go ahead and have it. And that's another big problem with the film overall, is that they're trying to make everyone happy. You're not going to do that. Because while you're doing all this stuff to try to make everyone happy, you're pissing off about half of the fan base because you're doing that. Like I said, this movie's going to be a very divisive film. You're either going to love it or hate it. Like I said, I love it, but I can see that the problems are in it. And me being a Last Jedi fan, I liked Last Jedi. I would watch this movie over Last Jedi any day of the week. It's a lot more fun. I feel like the story, like I said, is faster paced in a sense, but there's just more that they do in this film than in Last Jedi. Now, I know there's probably a whole slew of other people that'll feel 100% different and say that they would watch Last Jedi any moment over this film, or Force Awakens for that matter. But for me, if I had to choose between Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi, I would watch Rise of Skywalker every single time over The Last Jedi. Like I said, because it feels like Last Jedi is not a part of this episodic trilogy by the way they did this movie. You completely remove that, and it basically this feels like a sequel to Force Awakens and not a sequel to Last Jedi because of that. So, like I said, I could go into so much more things, like certain things, but I'm not going to, like I said, because of spoilers. So I'm just going to end it right there on the what does not work. So going into overall thoughts. Normally I would give a score for a film, but Star Wars films are a little conflicted for me when it comes to scoring. Just know this does not hit my top 10 films of 2019. Nor is it a disappointment, because I kind of knew going into this film this was going to be a little bit of a train wreck, because they had to do a lot of damage control, and not everyone was going to be happy with it. If you're a Star Wars fan, I don't need to recommend this movie to you. You're going to go see it. So, in terms of recommendations, it's kind of null and void. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to watch this movie. If you're not a Star Wars fan, you're probably not going to see this movie, and me telling you to go see it isn't going to help you because you're going into the 9th film of a 9-film franchise. I wouldn't tell you to go watch this movie if you haven't seen any Star Wars films because you wouldn't know what the heck was going on. So in terms of recommendations, you're going to see it anyway. So I'm not going to tell you to watch it. In terms of a score, I'm not going to give a score for this. It's a Star Wars film. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars movies. We will be coming out with a definitive ranking of the episodic films here in the next week or two, where we will rank all 1 through 9 and how we rank them. So if you want a definitive score of how I feel about this film compared to the other Star Wars movies, check that video out. But yeah, like I said, this is not going to crack into my top 10 of 2019 so far, so that list is going to stay the same, with Avengers Endgame at number 1, who actually knows how to end a franchise, even though MCU is still going on after that. Jojo Rabbit at number 2, Ford v Ferrari at 3, Joker at 4, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood at number 5, Parasite at 6, Knives Out at 7, Toy Story 4 at 8, Marriage Story at 9, and Rocket Man finishing out the top 10 with Dr. Sleep just outside of the top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Like I said, I know this review was very vague. I'm sure there are a lot of things that you would like for me to touch more on. We will. There's going to be a spoiler review. We're going to do a spoiler review with the rest of the Movie Crusaders who went and watched it tonight and tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be a long one. This movie needs to be talked about. It needs to be broken down. It's going to be a long video. Watch it in parts. Because, yeah, it's going to take a long time to talk and digest this film. Also, be on the lookout for Part 8 of the Movie Crusaders Rise Through the Star Wars Galaxy, as we still have to do our Last Jedi one. So be on the lookout for that. Next week's Christmas. So I don't know exactly how the reviews are going to pan out. There are a lot of movies coming out, but not all of them are wide release. So when a movie comes available in my area, I will watch it and I will put it up on here for you guys to see the review and tell you whether or not it's worth seeing or not seeing, because it is the holiday season and there are lots of movie choices out there. So be on the lookout for those videos. And like I said, the spoiler review for Rise of the Skywalker will probably pop up either probably Monday, I would say. Give the rest of the Movie Crusaders the weekend to try to watch this movie maybe once or twice, so that way it can really kind of sink in for them. But yeah, till next time, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.